Hi, this is James McGuire, and on today's eSpeaks, we're talking about data analytics and how to get more from your data better and faster. And we're looking into the future of analytics. To discuss that, I'm joined by a major industry expert. With me is Ajeet Singh, co-founder and executive chairman at ThoughtSpot. Ajeet, very good to talk with you on this Friday.
Yeah, likewise, James. Thanks for having me on your show.
So, there's so much going on with data these days. It seems like it's the absolute core topic in enterprise IT. It's like, how do we handle data? How do we make sure it's secure? How do we talk about who can access it and who can't? I heard about this a new document recently. The data, it's a data agreement document that decides who can access the data. So everything about data has gotten very big and very confusing. I guess I would ask you, from where you sit, when you're looking at the data analytics sector in the year 2022, what do you see? What's driving data forward or not forward this year?
Yeah, I think data industry and how companies are using data in their business. The fact that it is important, there is enough that's been said about it. There is obviously a lot of investment going into it. And as we all know really well, over the last decade or so, the biggest thing that has happened is move to cloud.
Mm-hmm.
Data has moved to cloud, applications have moved to cloud. And this next coming decade is about getting more value from that data in the cloud. So a lot of things that I'm seeing in the industry are related to better governance in the cloud, making data accessible to more and more people. Because it's not just having data in the cloud that is going to be end-to-end in itself. It is actually getting value from it. So how do I make it accessible to my business so they can make decisions? How do I provide them data that is relevant to them? How do I bring data to more and more applications? One of the big things that's happening is that historically you had data coming from applications landing into a data lake or a data warehouse, and then you are doing reporting on top of that. But data is seeping into business workflows. Data is going where the users are as opposed to users coming to data. So this whole, I think the old term that used for it is embedded analytics. I think what's going on right now is actually, I don't have a better phrase for it, but it's a modern embedded analytics, if I may use that.
And I definitely want to get into embedded analytics. I think it's a very hot trend. I just two things you said seem like they might be in conflict with one another. You talked about people needing to access the data and sort of democratization of access to the data, but you also talked about governance of the data. Seems like those two things may be in conflict: governance versus easy access.
They can be. It depends on how you approach it and how do you build the infrastructure. Historically, you had to choose between democratization or governance. Governance meant that you build this centralized, locked-down data warehouse, and you do fixed reporting on it that's completely governed, and then you give a fixed and rigid view to the business. But that's not enough, because if you do that, then you can't compete in this modern era where everything is digitized, things move fast, decision cycles have to be much faster. You have to empower the front lines with the data they need. If you have wealth advisors, and if you have merchandisers, they need to have data that is relevant to them at that point in time. So you have to provide customized insights for them. Now, democratization in the past meant that I, go to the data lake, I take a small chunk out of it, and then I bring it on my laptop or desktop, and then I do my own analysis. That creates all kinds of other problems. So you don't have governance, people don't have consistency, data security becomes a problem, all of those issues. I think, though, the way modern data stack is being built, it can provide you best of both worlds. If you choose the right tools and if you implement them in the right way. For example, when it comes to data storage, now you can use modern platforms like Snowflake or Google BigQuery and so on and so forth that are very flexible and very scalable. So you can keep a lot of data. You can store a lot of data at a low cost, which means you don't have to worry too much about the shape and form of data when you're storing it. Only when you're using it for analytics, you need to worry about is the data in the right form for business to use for analysis. Historically, if you're using a traditional data warehouse model, then you have to upfront do a lot of modeling and decide how your data should be stored so that it can be consumed. So that process has changed. There is modern data catalog tools that are now being used. Alation, Atlan, there's a few more, Colibra. All of
Alation is particularly hot. Yeah.
Yeah, they all provide better visibility and governance when it comes to definition of data, what data is stored where, who can access what, and so on and so forth. If you look at a product like ThoughtSpot, we provide self-service analytics for cloud. And in our architecture, there is no model of extracts. So historically, if you had a Tableau or a Power BI, you needed to extract data out of a warehouse or a data lake and then bring it to a desktop, do your analysis, and then publish a dashboard or visualizations. ThoughtSpot doesn't work like that. All that a user needs to have is a browser, and you connect to your cloud data platform, and you can do analysis directly on it. So I think across the board, people have realized that customers shouldn't have to make these trade-offs. And I think a lot of value is unlocked when you can break trade-offs, big trade-offs.
Well, I think it's interesting. I definitely want to get back to the idea of ThoughtSpot and making data access easier. I'd love to get your sense of, say there's a company out there that's struggling with their analytics program, and they're actually their entire analytics practice. Maybe some of the executives still want to run the business based on gut instinct. Maybe there's conflict about that. Maybe they're not getting much from their analytics program, or they're confused about it. I mean, what would, if you would sit that company down and give them some advice, like what advice would you say? This is what you should be doing, X, Y, and Z to be getting the most from your analytics practice.
Yeah, so getting value from data, there is a lot of reasons that you might be limited. Sometimes it can be a technical issue. Sometimes it can be a skill issue. Is your team skilled enough to get value from data in the cloud? Sometimes it can be even a culture and change management issue. People are trained to operate in a certain way where there is a fixed view that is given to them. And a lot of times people are even making decisions without using data in their business. They're not used to using data, making data-driven decisions.
Right.
So it really depends on where a customer is in their life cycle. But if it is a new and modern company, they will typically not have a historical culture change management issue, because they will have a very engineering-centric mindset where people are very hands-on. They can learn new things. They're very data-driven. Those kinds of things. If you are a traditional company, you've been around for 100 years, so which means you have a very strong business and a very strong brand, and customers are loyal. That is why you have actually been able to be around for 100 years. But then you have to think about, how do you compete with that digital native company that doesn't have the baggage of history? So that's where change management becomes important. And you have to have leaders that embrace change, that thrive on change. You also have to think about how to make changes incrementally, so that sometimes you've seen that people try to do a big bang and that fails. If I have been running an on-prem data warehouse or a collection of data warehouses publishing 20,000 Tableau dashboards, now I suddenly need to go to the cloud. I'm going to spend the next 4 years migrating data to the cloud, and then we will think about consumption. That model will not work, because the business is not going to wait. They won't be patient for 4 years to invest millions of dollars and then hope that they get value from it. So I think, and then we see sometimes if you have a large traditional enterprises, it might be hard for them to attract the right talent that knows how to wrangle data in the cloud and make the whole thing work. But at the end of the day, they have to compete with digital natives. Many a time, large web companies, they're competing against. So they have to use their strengths to their advantage and make changes in the right way, so they can make this transition and be successful.
What is your sense in terms of how many companies still really are struggling? And you may not be exactly in a position to have the statistical numbers, but do you get a sense that throughout industry that companies really are on top of their data programs and they're getting most of what they get from it? Or is it like, oh goodness, we've only just begun this process and really there's mass confusion out there?
I think it's much better than where it was even, I would say, 2 years ago.
Okay.
Pace of change has been very, of course, still there's a lot of companies that are figuring it out. And even the companies that have made the transition, they're not 100%, in the cloud and getting most value from the cloud. Data is such a, vast space that it's sort of an infinite game. You can keep figuring out how to get more value from your data. But I'm definitely seeing a lot more companies being able to store their data, use data in the cloud, integrate with workflows. So it is much better. And some of it is also, I think, I see big differences based on the industry people come from. And there's a pattern. I would say more technical, engineering centric industries, analytical industries, they are doing a better job. Industries that are more regulated, they are lagging by definition. I think it becomes a little bit of a culture issue as well. But even there, I've seen a big change in the last 2 years. And I think
You mean like healthcare, for example?
Healthcare, it's depending on who you are within healthcare and what role you're
Sure.
playing.
Right.
It varies. So it is challenging, but I'm also seeing a ton of progress, and people have been doing a lot of experiments. They have learned from roles like chief data officer have been around for almost 4 or 5 years now. So people have had some experiences with what works, what doesn't work. There is more talent that is available now than there was 4 or 5 years ago. So there is a lot of positive things.
Yeah, great.
Plus COVID. Sorry, one last thing I would say.
Yes, please.
There's obviously a lot of negatives from COVID, but one positive thing was it created a sense of urgency and some pressure on organizations to transform very quickly.
Yes.
That definitely accelerated. So we are seeing the other side of it now, where people have done significant migrations to cloud, and they're doing some good and interesting things.
I think that's clearly true. I mean, for all the tragedy of the pandemic and how as horrible as it was, I think technology and the acceleration of technology is inarguably the winner. I mean, it really sped things up. I think we would have gotten to this point anyways. It might have just taken a few more years.
Yeah.
Let's look at ThoughtSpot. I want to make sure we drill down into what is a ThoughtSpot advantage. I mean, there's a lot of data application platforms out there. Why would a business go with ThoughtSpot among the many others?
Yeah, the number one reason we see our customers adopt ThoughtSpot at large scale is self-service. Like I said earlier, people migrated their data to the cloud, and now the bottleneck again becomes technical resources that are there to keep building reports and dashboards for people. So the next transformation that is happening, first was data platforms migrating to cloud. But definitely now people are saying, how do I get more value from it? Because if I'm still publishing the same reports and dashboards to my business doesn't care whether the data was on-prem or that is sitting in a cloud data warehouse, cloud data platform in the cloud. They really want to see insights that are more relevant to the individual. If I'm a branch manager of this particular branch of a bank, then I want to know what's happening with my part of the business. Or I run this product line, what's happening with my product line. I ran this campaign, what's happening. I'm going to meet this customer, what insurance policies can I offer them? So I want insights that are customized to me, and if that doesn't change, then the cloud migration is no good. So with ThoughtSpot, people are able to really empower their business, and they're also able to reduce pressure on their technical teams so that they can focus more on bringing more data to the cloud, launching new use cases, providing better governance, having better data quality, doing better data engineering. And they reduce the time they are spending on just printing more and more dashboards for the business. That's been the number one reason across the
Well,
board.
the interesting about the idea of self-service. So, I mean, some company might say, well, self-service is great, but my regional sales manager is not fantastic with analytics, and they need a data scientist helping them out. So I wouldn't want that individual to be doing self-service because they're not going to know how to really dig into the numbers. Like, what would you say to that?
Yeah, I think it's not a 0 or 1 in my mind. It's a spectrum, and you don't want to shortchange your business people thinking that they can't do it. You have to start small. It's a change management issue, like I said earlier.
Hmm.
You start small, and then incrementally they become comfortable with data, and they start asking more and more interesting and useful questions. So the way we have designed our user experience, if you look at ThoughtSpot, we are a very design-centric company. We understand our users really, really well. So when you do self-service, you do enable the data team to give sort of a starting points to the business,
Hmm.
so that they can start where they are today, as opposed to having to make a big leap on day one.
Hmm.
But then as they go from day 1 to day 10 to day 100, they're becoming more and more data savvy.
Uh-huh.
Because I think good business people are curious by nature. There's no such thing as technical in my mind. As long as they are curious, they will have more questions, they will dig deeper. And I think it's still a sort of a partnership between the technology, the data team, and the business that has to work in a nice way for the business to get most value from data.
Yeah, it really makes sense. Well, let's look into the future of data analytics. What is your sense in terms of, say, we're in 2025, 2027? What is that self-service data analytics going to look like, or the analytics practice in general? And specifically, we know that AI is going to play a major role. So what do you see happening with AI and data analytics in the years ahead?
Yeah, no, thank you so much for asking 3 to 5 years, because sometimes people say 10 years ahead, and it's
10 years,
so
I
fast.
think, I
Yeah.
mean, it's hard to look, 24 months out with technology. 5 years is a little bit, 10 years is ridiculous, I think, in terms of the tech market. Is just like, who knows. But anyways, yeah, we'll all be like avatars of ourselves at 10 years from now.
Yeah, there's a lot of possibilities, exciting possibilities. So 3 to 5 years, the thing that I'm seeing now is, one, data and insights becoming ubiquitous.
Mm.
Historically, they have been locked inside BI dashboards, but if I am a finance person doing financial planning, I'm using a tool, I want insights right there. I mean, it's like if I use Fitbit, it's counting my steps, but it's also telling me my heartbeat and general sleep. Did I sleep well? And it's one integrated experience. So application developers, which are building business apps, whether they are for internal use or for customers, if you're a SaaS company,
Hmm.
analytics is becoming a very integral part of all applications,
Hmm.
not limited to just BI dashboards. The second is push versus pull.
Mm.
So historically, people would actually literally use this word. Can you pull me a report? Can you pull this report for
Right,
me?
right. I remember the phrase. It's still used.
Yes, it is still used. So definitely, there is a need for on-demand pull-based insights. But where the world is going is also, you'll start to see systems becoming smart enough, whether there is AI is part of it, scale and compute power that is becoming available is part of it. Based on all that, systems will be smart enough to understand the context of a user and push the right insights to them at the right time.
Mm.
It's like, some my favorite online digital media app might tell me, oh, some new movie has become available. It's because it knows what movies I've been watching in the past. So it comes to me and recommends things to me.
So it's almost there's a partnership between the data analytics platform and the user, almost a predictive analytics kind of a thing.
Yeah, well, predictive is predicting where a metric might be in the future. So predicting how your sales might be next 3 quarters. That
Hmm.
is predictive analytics. What I'm talking about is actually different. It is coming to the user and informing them of what's happening in their business. It's sort of
Current day.
frame sometimes business monitoring, where the users can be relatively hands off, and the system will tell them this is what is happening with your business, and then they can dig deeper. So if ThoughtSpot comes and tells me that, oh, your user engagement has dropped for these 5 customers in the last 3 months, then I want to dig in and find out why that is happening.
Hmm. Hmm.
It dropped because we released some new features that people don't like, or something else is going on here. So yeah,
And
I
then and then the AI piece. How do you see that playing a role?
I think AI I've always believed that AI is yet another tool in the toolkit. It's not a panacea for everything. But that said, I think definitely systems are becoming products, technology, they're becoming more and more smart. If you have the ability to capture user behavior, you can offer them relevant insights. I think what is important for AI to be successful in this space, is that you need to understand the context of the user and have some data about their behavior. If you don't have that, then AI might generate insights, but they might be very noisy.
Gotcha. So, all right. So the AI is needed to sort of form a context for the user and the actual platform.
Correct. So the technology companies like ThoughtSpot, they need to build the infrastructure to be able to understand the user context, understand what's relevant to them, and then offer relevant insights. So I think relevance of insights is the most important problem to solve when it comes to using AI for analytics.
Cool. Ajeet, I think you said it. Fascinating as always. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate your insight today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, James.